This is the Up for Grabs podcast. My name is Derek Spivey, and I'm the host of the podcast. I'm here with my thoughts and a couple of my friends to discuss Big Brother 19. That is right, John Gordon is not joining us today. We'll have to get all of John's hot takes after the season finale tomorrow night. Let's go ahead and do some introductions for these other couple of guys. Here with me is the one and only, brilliant-minded, Big Brother convert, and huge Butty fan, your boy, Dustin Griffith. Dustin, what's up, dude?
What's up, my butties? Pulling them strings.
You're pretty much a fan of everything Raven these days, right? Like,
oh, man. I hung on there for a long time, but she lost me with this last jury. Look into the jury house. She's just completely on a different planet.
She's a puppeteer.
Apparently.
She was puppeteering you as a viewer of her game.
She got me.
And a Matt, apparently, too. I wonder how long that'll last. So, here also with me is the one and only, always witty, World Hot Take Champion of 2016, and huge Mason Rudolph for Hyman fan, your boy, Justin Southwell. Justin, what's up, dude?
Oh, what's up, dude? Dude, a Hyman on that.
Oh,
my gosh.
What do you think Mason Rudolph's Hyman hopes are this season?
You should ask Robert Allen, see if he knows.
I actually had this intro saved for John Gordon today, and John is a big OU fan, so I was going to throw some Baker Mayfield shade in there and use this punchline, but it was too good to pass up. I've been saving it for a few weeks, and had to use it on Justin this time. So sorry, Justin. All right, well, without further ado, let's talk about Big Brother 19. We are here to not give a weekly recap. We haven't been very faithful doing that the last few weeks, but we're going to talk about Josh, Christmas, and Paul's games up to this point, why they got there, and what their hopes are what their chances are of winning this season. I want to start with Christmas because I feel like maybe she has the lowest winner's equity, at least at this point in the game. We don't know how the finale is all going to play out tomorrow night, but what are you guys' initial hot takes of Christmas and her game this season so far?
Well, first of all, I want to say that I kind of admire her for coming back in after breaking her foot. But at the same time, I wish she would have just stayed out and then had the opportunity to come back another season because...
Hey, actually, Jason broke her foot, okay? Let's make sure we keep this straight here. Christmas did not break her foot, Jason.
So true. So, yeah, it's all Jason's fault. He should have been eliminated. No, I'm just kidding. But I didn't like the fact that she was able to come back in and take the place of a competitor because she wasn't able to compete in probably more than half of those competitions if she wasn't medically cleared to do so. And I feel like that really just kind of played into Paul's game more than anything because he benefited from it. And Christmas has kind of just been drug along for the ride. And I feel like she hasn't really done too much other than just kind of, I don't know, she's somewhat stirred some stuff up, but at the same time, she's obviously not a threat. Like, why would anybody want to get her out? So,
I agree. I think that she missed her calling. I think her calling in being able to stay in the game was to overthrow Paul. And she got so close several times, but never pulled the trigger.
Because she loves him.
Apparently. Gross. But I think she basically just bought in like everyone else and toddled along behind Paul the rest of the game.
Did she bought in or she bawed into his body?
Where's the bell?
I had to dump it. We'll talk about that after the pod. I think Christmas' love interest in Paul overrode her strategic thinking, and basically she just put that on the back burner. I mean, Christmas gave up winning the game about halfway through and seemed to trade that in for a relationship with Paul, which Paul has shown very little reciprocal interest in. So it just seems very desperate and just dumb of Christmas. She's 35. She's a very strong woman. I'm like, why are you so bad at this game, or how can you not understand like what's at stake here?
Well, the whole part about her like wanting to throw away the money so fast that doesn't make any sense to me is she was basically berating Jessica for essentially doing the same thing with Cody. She's like, "Oh, you're throwing away $500,000, a pretty expensive date." Well, you're doing the exact same thing. Now you're in the final three, and it's very apparent that you would throw the game so Paul could get $500,000.
There must be something magic about that house or something, because anybody who gets into a showmance inevitably ends up questioning whether or not they want $500,000 for these people that they just met a month or two ago. And we've seen people actually legitimately toss it away for the other person. Like Clay volunteered to go home instead of Shelly a couple seasons ago because he liked her enough to just bail on the game. I don't understand that.
I really wish we got the chance to see if Corey would have left the game for Nicole last year, because I'm pretty sure he wouldn't have, which would have been amazing.
What? I think he totally would have. That dude was dumb.
Yeah, I don't know. He just didn't seem as into her. Like, Matt seemed like the type of person that would not have given his game up for Raven up until the point that he absolutely would have.
Yeah.
And did. So, I don't know. I like the idea of seeing people who are in a showmance who also keep their priorities straight within the game and just say, hey, look, I'm into you. Like, you're attractive or whatever, but I got to win this money. This is what's best for my family, and we'll work it out afterward.
Like Elena, that's exactly what Elena did. She sat down with Mark and she's like, listen, dude, you're all right, but you're not going to jeopardize my game.
Which
I'm
that
not
makes
gonna
sense
give
for
up that
them.
money for you.
But I think the reason that Matt was so adamant about it was because he was just so overpowered with what Raven had been throwing at them all season, as far as like she's the best person ever. Like, she's gone through so much. She deserves to win. Like, $500,000 would mean so much for her and for her campaign, to let more people know about her diseases and whatnot. It probably doesn't help that they were, rocking.
Doing it.
That's all that Matt did this summer, remember, guys?
You got to cut that out.
Zing.
Wow.
So I think that the idea of Elena basically keeping her priorities straight in the game had equally as much to do with her blindly following Paul as it did her keeping her priorities straight within the game. What I mean by that is that I think that Paul was in her ear saying, hey, you got to cut Mark. Mark is bad for your game. Who cares if you like him or whatever? Dude needs to go. And Elena's like,
Maybe.
oh yeah, Paul knows everything. Like,
Just
Paul's
thinking maybe
friendship.
if she actually had her focus and her priorities straight, she would not trust Paul. I mean, the one veteran in the house, and he's playing everybody, and it's so apparent. And she kind of already had this side thing going with Jess and Cody, and then they couldn't convince her. Pretty bad.
Yeah, that's interesting too, because I don't know if it's just Paul's influence or if it's the fact that someone from the outside is pointing out that a person's bad for your game, but multiple people told Jessica to clip Cody or else she was going down with him, and she didn't listen to him, and she went down before he did.
Yeah, I think that whole storyline is just a great example of what, there's many examples of this season of what could have been, and Big Brother is kind of full of a lot of what ifs, but I go back, even in Christmas's game, kind of going back to Christmas, Christmas was up for eviction the first week, but it's because she chose to do a house vote instead of playing in a competition to see who goes home the first week out of her, Jillian Cameron. And I thought that was really interesting. Now, looking back on it, I'm like, was that really the right strategic decision for Christmas? Maybe, because she makes it to the end of the game, in retrospect. But maybe it was just a preview at Christmas basically being an idiot and being clueless about how to play Big Brother, as we've seen a lot this season as well.
I think it was dumb luck. She just lucked out that people didn't latch on to her being a threat soon enough. And by the same token, we're comparing Christmas and Paul to all these other showmances. They're not even a showmance. Why would she throw away anything for Paul? I don't get it.
Yeah, and probably the biggest thing that happened to her was her breaking her foot so that she didn't come off as such a threat, because she was on the block week 1.
Yeah, and I did think it was very interesting that we saw more of Christmas as an aggressor, at least socially, after she broke her foot. It's almost like it kind of destroyed her social game along with her physical game. It is really weird to see how she collapsed that way.
Definitely want to talk about this too. She evicted Kevin, and her speech was basically like, hey man, sorry, social game's part of it, but competing is also part of it. And I'm like, Christmas, anybody could say that except you.
No,
because,
Christmas won 2 head of households.
Yeah,
remember?
totally rigged competitions. Like,
She won a foot race.
let's throw the foot race to her, and then Paul basically answered wrong so that she would win HOH for that other competition. And I'm just like, you're supposed to be a competitor and you haven't done anything this whole season.
She could have won the wall with only one leg. Let me just say that.
I think that it would have been very interesting to see if Christmas, like, let's continue to play this what if game. What if Christmas chooses to play the competition? So her and Cameron both pick the competition, and Christmas goes on to win that competition and gains immunity for the first week's eviction. With her having won, let's say that then she goes on to break her foot like week 2 or whatever. Do you guys think that the way that people see her in the game, instead of as a GOAT, they see her as a huge threat? Or at least as a potential threat because of her winning the first physical competition, which, of course, we don't even know what the first competition would have been. I guess it could have been something more like puzzle-based. But, I mean, I just love to think about these things. Like, if Christmas picks a competition, wins a competition, like, what do you think the house perceives her as? You know, basically, she shows you a huge physical threat immediately based on, you know, her physique, her ability to win the competition, and then she breaks her foot. And it's like, this awkward, man, is she worth going for or not? Because she's obviously a huge competitor. I don't know. It would have been interesting.
I think she would have been in the same position Cody ended up in. He was a big physical threat. He made big plays right at the beginning, pissed everyone off, and became a huge target. And I think that would have been Christmas if she had been able to compete.
Well, part of Cody pissing everybody off was getting half the house on the block in the first week. But, I mean, I remember, like, in the initial predictions of this season, I think I predicted that Christmas would win the most competitions because I just pictured her as being a competition beast, and that was a terrible prediction.
It's weird because she was probably the most popular pick across all of America, not just to win a lot of comps, but to win the game. I mean, she's obviously brilliant. She has a great social game. I mean, she's proved that time and time again throughout the house when she tried to have a good social game. And then we know
She convinced us in her pregame speech. Like, she totally sold everybody on that.
Yeah. And it's amazing that she didn't basically get to back anything up. And I do kind of sympathize with her in the sense that the entire time she's been in the game, she begged to come back. I mean, she begged production to let her continue to play. But she also, this entire time, has held up the fact that she hopes that she gets to play again to be able to play, you know, her real game, which I don't want her to.
That is whack. Like, you play your real game, you get one chance, and you play your freaking game. Like, it's so stupid that they're bringing veterans back all the time, and they're basically relying on that so that they can, maybe I can have a second chance. And, like, Alex was thinking the same thing. Like, let's just give this one to Paul, and we can come back next season. Like, it shouldn't even be something that's considered in your game at all.
I feel the same way about the battle back, but I can see at least some more merit in that than bringing vets back.
Yeah, I was actually wondering what Christmas would have done in the battle back and if they would have given her a different competition. I mean, she probably could have played both of those because even the second one where they had to launch the balls at the wall or whatever, knock down all the dominoes, I think that she still would have been able to play that even though she would have started having trouble like after she ran out of balls the first time. I don't know. But,
Right.
I don't know. It's very interesting to think about what Christmas's game could have been. And I agree with Justin. I don't think she deserves a chance to play again, just based on what she's done socially the second half of this game. She showed that she had a lot of social power in the game. People liked her a lot. People listened to her. I mean, if you think Josh is probably the most volatile person in the house, yet he's given all of that over to Christmas. He's trusted her completely from probably about week 1, whenever he originally lost his cool.
Crying on her shoulder.
Yeah, exactly. And like, even though Christmas and Jessica had several issues in the house, remember that Christmas, probably like week 4 or so, when Jessica really broke down, Christmas sat with her, talked to her for a long time in the Rose room, and basically said like, girl, like, we're going to live together, screw these guys suck. Like, I think it was whenever Jess was pissed at Cody. And within probably 15 minutes in that conversation, Christmas had won Jessica over. And even though Jessica might have said, no, Christmas isn't my favorite person in the house, or I don't trust her a ton, she would have said, I think she's a great person.
Yeah, and they were mortal enemies at the beginning, like at each other's throats.
Yeah, well, and guess what? They're mortal enemies now because Christmas blew every chance she had to gain respect from the jurors, from the people who went home, from pretty much all of America with her game. And I honestly think that if she makes it to the final 2, we could see a unanimous vote based on the fact that people are going to have a hard argument putting the pieces together for Christmas's game on her behalf if she doesn't even give a speech to try to back anything up. I mean, all she needs to do is go into the final 2 and say, guys, I got here on one leg. I used my social power to win myself 2 head of households. I maintained, I stayed in the middle of both Paul and Josh, 2 of the bigger threats in the entire game, and ensured that they would both drag me to the end. And I think based on all of that, I deserve some consideration here. I mean, that speech, which I put 0 thought into ahead of time, is, in my mind, like 100 times better than anything that Christmas is actually prepared to go say at the final 2, which is just, that's a joke. I mean, it pisses me off.
Every one of these people, Paul, Josh, and Christmas, you can make a case that they should have been gone a long time ago. Like all 3 of them. Josh pissed everyone off. Christmas broke her leg and did almost nothing. And then Paul, get a clue. I don't know how anybody let Paul get this far. It's unreal. And now they're not even going to vote for him in the jury.
Well, it's because the only 2 people that were actually gunning for Paul were out, basically, as fast as they came in.
Cody and Jess.
Yeah. And everybody else was basically on this super fan level. Kevin couldn't do anything because he couldn't win a competition. So he didn't even have a chance to blow any of that up. The closest that we might have seen has been Josh. And he probably could have pulled the trigger maybe on one of the double eviction nights just as a surprise and really shake things up. But he just wanted to ride that out and see where it took him. And obviously, it helps him. But this late in the game, with those people as the final 3, I feel like you're really taking a risk as Josh to be voted by the jury that, I just don't think that he can really say, give a speech that would say that he did more than Paul to win this game.
Yeah, Josh has got some good arguments to be made. I just think that he's going to struggle getting there. He's a little scatterbrained, and I don't know. I want to talk more about Josh in a second. Let's wrap up Christmas by just seeing, do you guys give her any credit? Let me back it up here. So let's put ourselves in her position. You broke your foot. Basically you're not going to be able to play in half the competitions. Do you think it's an admirable strategy to basically say, look, I'm not going to be able to do enough on one leg to probably win this game, but what I can do is put myself in a position to win $50,000? And do you think that's admirable? Do you think that's, basically a solid strategy? Or do you think that that's just dishonorable?
I think if you're going to make final 2, you should go for the 500. There's no reason not to, but I don't think she has a case for it. Could she win against either Paul or Josh? Maybe against Josh. Maybe against Paul if people hate Paul that much. I don't know.
That should just be something that you bring up in the initial interviews with all of those players. If it comes down to it, are you going to go for $50,000? 90 days ago, nobody would have said that. Oh, I'll take $50,000 as opposed to $500,000 because I want to give it up to the guy that got second place last season.
But why would anybody do that? I don't understand.
The issue with Christmas all along, and this was probably pretty evident whenever they casted her, is that when they ask this question during casting or right before the show and they say, would you rather lose and be loved by America or would you rather win the money and be hated? And the problem with someone like Christmas who has all the fans that she has is she's not willing to go very far at all to lose America essentially. And the problem is that she's willing to basically ruin other people's games, ruin her own chance of winning the game, enable other people who don't deserve to win the game. She's willing to go great lengths in the game to ensure, to desperately try to scrape for either keeping her fans or getting more fans. And what's sad is based on her gameplay, she's lost tons of respect from the Big Brother fan base. Even some of the things that she said on a personal level were very disrespectful, and I'm sure she was disowned by many people, specifically within the South, based on some of her comments about Cody and his military experience. That was her idea to attack him. Paul was the one that began executing it and encouraging it. Christmas was the one that said, hey, let's try to rag on Cody and his military experience and stuff. And then I think Matt was the one that brought it into questions, I don't know what I think about this. And she got pissed off at Matt, how dare you question, my intentions here? What are you saying? I'm a bad person or something? She got really, really offended by that. And I'm just girl, you're throwing away everything. You're not just throwing away $500,000. You're throwing away a lot more here. And she lost a leg, which is unfortunate. I think she'll be fine. People are still going to buy her books, and she's going to end up with more Instagram followers. So congratulations, but I don't know. I think this is just a huge failure for her altogether.
Help me understand why Instagram followers for her would be more important than winning the money. Now tell me.
I don't know. She's just I don't know. It's sad. That's all there is to do.
Is that really like?
She's a millennial, bro. What else can I say?
She's that obsessed with her fan base?
Well, it's not just the fan base. I'm pretty sure she probably has enough followers at this point that she can use Instagram as a source of revenue.
See, if it's like
So
endorsements and stuff, that would make more sense.
Well, I think like maybe she has potential with the way that Instagram is today. Like she probably has potential to make more than $500,000 a year if she can just continue to build her fan base and start promoting things on her page and all that stuff. So that's the only thing that I can think of. It's like a source of like perpetual income in that sense, but I don't know if I don't know if it would ever get that high. I just think that maybe that's her only line of thought in that, because logically it makes no sense. The only thing that's holding her back right now is Paul, which is mind-blowing to me.
Do you think that she'd win against Josh? Final two?
No.
I think we'd have to break down the jury votes. A lot of people are saying that she has a better chance of beating Josh than Paul. I mean, I think she gets probably no votes against Paul because of friendship. maybe some of the people who just hate Paul
Cody.
are gonna. Yeah, maybe some of the people. I actually think Cody has a decent chance of voting for Paul, just because he respected Paul a lot in the game, even while he still hated him on a personal level. He respected his gameplay, so he said that a lot. Like man to man, I understand what you're trying to do, but.
I mean, yeah, I think at one point didn't he like pound his chest and say respect to him? I know that he hates him, but
When he was getting put on the block.
hates Josh. Like hates Josh. Can't stand him. He basically says that he doesn't exist in his mind. I see no circumstance under which he would actually vote for Josh.
I feel like Cody just is sitting in the jury house cultivating his bitterness. Like, I feel like he's selling himself against Paul the more he sees people come in because of Paul, rather than like saying, wow, this dude's killing it playing this game.
Yeah, let's segue into Josh here. Let's talk more about this. So I think Josh is actually the reason he has trouble in the jury is because Josh didn't start coming around until Mark and Atlanta went out in the double eviction, right? Weren't they the first double eviction, both of them? I can't remember.
Who was it?
Mark and Elena, didn't they
That was
go
the
home back
first
to
one.
Wasn't it
That was the first
Jessica? I thought Jessica was part of the double.
No.
Or maybe Cody. Maybe Cody went home first, and then Mark
Cody-
went home
Oh,
second.
Cody-
It was Cody,
Cody and
Elena.
Elena went home, and then Mark
Yeah.
went home the next week.
But it wasn't
Yeah.
part of the double. Cody and then Elena was the double,
Right.
and then Mark went home.
So the problem is that by the time Cody goes home, I mean, I was telling you guys, like, I kind of like Josh still. He's an interesting guy. I think he's not an idiot. He's a super fan. He knows the game a little bit. But at the time Cody goes home, most of America hates Josh. I mean, the dude is just...
Obnoxious.
Yeah, he is a meatball. I mean, essentially, while all this crap's going on, he's banging pots and pans, he's doing all this stupid stuff. He's super, super unbearable to not only live with, but just to even watch on the show. And Cody has every right in the world to just think the dude's a complete loser by the time Cody goes home. The problem is that even though Josh has done a lot of things to impress America and the viewers since then to kind of win people over, I don't think he's done very much within the game to really turn that perception around. And really what you have to do in that case is you have to turn things around, not enough to just gain people's respect within the game, but to gain the respect enough to where when they go home and go to the jury house, they're willing to tell people like Cody, hey dude, like Josh was an idiot, but he really turned it around since you left, and you need to think about giving him your vote. Like, no one's going to do that. Elena, Mark, all those people, they might not hate Josh, but they're not willing to completely do a 180 on him.
I don't think they have to do a 180. I think that in the jury house, there are enough people that probably think Paul backstabbed them. He's not friendship. He doesn't deserve to win. Who would be the second person behind him? And I think that people would probably point to Josh because he played a somewhat similar game. He did more of the dirty work for Paul, and he was still able to stay in the house and basically, save face through all of that. So if anybody has a chance to win, if it's not Paul, I think it would definitely be Josh instead of Christmas.
I agree. I would almost prefer Josh to win, maybe even over Paul, because I think that Josh turned it around enough to do some things at the end of the game, and really, I'm not sold on the jury giving it to Paul yet. We should do a breakdown of jury votes before we end this thing because I want to know what you guys think.
Yeah, we'll do it both ways. We'll probably spend just a few more minutes on Josh here. I just think it's amazing that he basically went from week one where he's bawling his eyes out, he's yelling at Megan self-evicts. Josh is paranoid to death, takes the golden apple, and at this point, America's like, dang, this dude was a huge letdown. I mean, he's freaking nuts. He's Devin 2.0.
Well, he took the golden apple before Megan because he was saying it was Megan's, like Megan was gunning for him.
Oh, that golden apple. I was thinking
Yeah.
the tree of temptation or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so many apples, just apples everywhere.
And snakes.
But I was going to say that's why people hate him. I mean, he's not just a loose cannon. He's just a spaz. I mean, he's just hard to connect with. And I just think it's amazing that we're here now where Josh, it's hard to nail down, like, what all has he done? I mean, he says some things in the jury, wins a couple competitions. His game is just so much more respectable than where it was week 2.
He grew up a lot. It was weird.
Yeah, he grew up. That's a good point. And it's really actually pretty similar to how I feel about Steve from Big Brother 17, where, I mean, Steve is obviously way more likable. He's a very innocent guy. He's a very nice guy. But I just felt like he was just so immature, he was almost unrootable. And, I mean, I love Steve as a person, but I did not like him in the game. But by the time he won and he cut Vanessa at the end, I'm like, this dude earned it, and he grew up like before our eyes. And we've seen this with Ian and other younger players. Even Nicole, in a sense. I mean, she's super young. Paul was 23 last year when he played. I like seeing these younger people kind of figure the game out along the way and learn. And even Josh, having known the game, it was very evident that he didn't know how he wanted to play or needed to play early on. But towards the end of the game, he had a better sense than even Paul of what needed to be done to get further in the game. I mean, Paul at this point is, like, 2-3 weeks ago, making up his mind and allowing Kevin to even sway him further that Christmas cannot be dragged to the final 2. When in reality, Josh has a way better chance of beating Paul than Christmas does. So it's amazing to me that Josh seems to have a better pulse in the game than Paul in the last few weeks of the game. It just shows how far he's come.
I think Paul got to the point where he had these best laid plans from the very beginning to have these alliances and then break them at the end. Pick one to stick with and then move on. And Paul got to the point where he started having to pull a trigger and cut off the people he didn't actually want as alliances. And Josh didn't have that responsibility. He didn't have that opportunity to maybe lose people's trust like that. He kind of was able to coast along behind Paul's plans, where that actually was Paul having to get some blood on his hands finally.
I kind of disagree with that because I think that Josh did a lot of the stuff in the field. So what I mean by that is Paul basically had all these plans and he would pick and choose who he wanted to get out. But he made it to where the blood got on other people's hands, and I think that part of that was Josh. Like he was the one who had to do the tiebreaker vote in this last eviction, or not the last one, but the one before that. And it makes Paul look like he's innocent, like he didn't have any choice in the matter, and that somebody else turned on him. But I don't know if the jury knows the whole story. They obviously don't see everything that we're seeing. So, I think that while Paul is kind of the mastermind behind all of that stuff, Josh is kind of one of his soldiers doing all of this fighting for him.
Yeah, but like Paul had to basically sit down face to face with Alex and say, "Hey, I know we're in an alliance, but
yeah, that was kind of like the one case because he's like, I respect Alex a lot. I'm gonna have to like let her know how it is. Like, I really don't want to do this, but she's too strong at this point." And yeah, I mean, I get that. Like that's probably like the one point that he could say that. You probably can't say that if he was trying to get Alex off, like at the same time that he was getting Cody out. Like he wouldn't have said that. Like there's no way he would have done the same thing.
And then, but he also he sat down with Kevin and he was like, "Nah, dude, you're safe." And then immediately didn't use the veto on him and sent him out the door. Like,
Yeah.
these are like back-to-back
See,
betrayals.
what I think you guys are getting at, which is super interesting, I've never thought of this before, but one of the best arguments I feel like Josh could have in jury, or at least at Final Two, is to say to the jury, Paul may have manipulated everyone in the game, but I did all the work. So it's like that's how he can earn the respect of someone like Cody.
If he doesn't
right?
if he does not say that, he will lose the game.
Yeah, well,
He
basically,
has no chance to win.
yeah. I mean, he's got some arguments for some other votes, but I think he has a hard time piling them on. But it's like someone like Cody, you can look at Cody and go, dude, I know we had our differences and stuff, and I know that you respect some of the things that Paul did in this game, but we're basically comparing whether or not, like, he's basically saying, hey, Paul may be good with his mouth, but I made all the moves in this game. Well, first of all, he won a couple of comps that he really needed to win, and those were not particularly thrown to him like the ones that Christmas got. Second, Josh did things like, Paul saying, hey, go cause a scene, and Josh would go cause the scene, which puts a ton of blood on his hands and stuff in the moment. But at end game, I think Josh has something there. He can say, hey, Paul might have been somewhat controlling and manipulative and being behind the scenes doing all this stuff, but he was deploying us, and therefore we should get a lot of the equity. Like, don't give Paul the credit. Paul's just sitting there just puppeteering everything, which, congratulations, you're good at talking. But it's like I'm the one going and causing scenes. I'm the one getting all the blood on my hands, nominating the people you wanted me to, sending them out. And therefore, in that sense, my game is more respectable because I have more that actually I've done in the game. I think it's a kind of weak argument, but I could see it working too with this jury a little bit. I mean, people like Raven and Matt, they're a lost cause, but I think people, like I said, like Cody, like Alex, maybe, I don't know, it'd be interesting.
The other thing about Josh is he probably thought about getting Paul out at a certain point pretty recently, but I think he feared Paul because of things that he would say if he was in that situation. Like, Paul is very intimidating if anybody questions his game, and he let everybody know about it. He wasn't afraid to call people out. So I think that Josh was probably trying to hold on, like, as long as he can, like, as far as he can get in the game. I think he probably would have called him out if he was on the block more, but I don't think he really had the need to do any of that. So I think the game could have been a lot different if maybe Josh was on the block instead of Matt for like 4 weeks straight.
I think it also depends on your perspective on some of these plays. Like, if Paul goes to all the trouble of masterminding an alliance with the end result being a betrayal.
Sorry, that was Raven actually masterminding.
Okay,
everything,
if
bro.
Raven goes on, no. If Paul masterminds a fake alliance or something to get ahead with the intention of betraying in the end and backstabbing and sending him out, does that translate to, oh, that was awesome gameplay, you get my vote, or, oh, you stabbed me in the back, I'm giving my vote to Josh?
Yeah, it's like, is the jury going to be bitter or not? And basically, there's nothing wrong with what Paul's done strategically. Well, I say nothing wrong.
Sure.
He's done some things questionable. Like, he didn't play as clean of a game as Derek, but the thing is, Derek manipulated everyone as much, if not more, than what Paul's done this year. The problem is that Derek owned everything once the people, like, the problem is that Paul's going to stand up in his Final Two speech and go, I'm a vet, friendship, we had friendship all summer, thanks guys for the friendship, vote for me because I was a vet and I had a target on my back. Like, instead he needs to stand up there and own everything that he did in the game. He should have been owning them in the goodbye messages, which is why you see everyone bitter right now. It's like, you can't be sending people like freaking Jason, who's probably the second most emotional player in the game other than Paul. You can't
Or
be
Josh.
Yeah, or Paul.
Mark.
You can't be sending people like that home, though, saying things like, man, I don't know what happened. Like,
Right.
It's like, are you joking me? I mean, the sad thing is Jason probably would have believed it if it weren't for, Josh exposing Paul and his goodbye message. But I just think Paul's got to have a better read than that. I mean, you live with these people every day for an entire summer, and you can't figure out what they want to hear whenever you say goodbye to them. It's like, I feel like I can talk to people for like 10 minutes and have a pretty good read on like how to communicate bad news to them, like just based on their personality. It's like, Paul should have known that Jason would have wanted him to tell him the truth and to own up to everything. Jason wouldn't have liked it in the instant sense, but he would have earned his vote like immediately.
Sidebar on that thought, do you guys think, and Derek, probably you'll have a better idea than than Justin or myself. Is this a more dramatic, more emotional group than usual? Because they sure seem like they hold grudges longer, they get bitter about things and hang on to it. Like their responses to like big gameplays are almost like immature and babyish a lot of times.
Yeah, the problem has been that a lot of people have been more personal in this game than in a lot of other games. So, I mean, I do think, yeah, they're millennials or whatever. They're, an emotional wreck because they don't know how to like communicate socially and all these other things that you could say. But I think the biggest issue is that people have been way more personal in their attacks this year. The couple of times in the past where we have seen personal things come into play, it's almost like one-offs where it's like they come into a play and then they're immediately shot down and considered personal. And basically, from that moment on, personal attacks are not accepted by anyone else in the house and they're seen as off limits. This season, it kind of seemed almost like
It became the norm.
yeah, it became normal for them to attack each other personally. And we even see Zingbot calling out Josh on his weight. No, I'm kidding. But I do think it's been more personal, and because of that, people got very emotionally invested in their disagreements and stuff with each other. And then people like Cody who are just, going to create lines in the sand just because of their nature, doesn't help either. But
The disadvantage that Paul has going into the finale is the jury is composed of a bunch of people who don't know how to play Big Brother and probably don't understand these guidelines for Big Brother. They're going to look at it as he stabbed me in the back. It's not friendship. I don't like him. I'm not going to vote for him. When in reality, they probably should be viewing it as, wow, he definitely played us, and like that's the way the game's played. Like he gets my vote because he was that good.
Yeah, I think actually Alex probably has the best perspective or example of that. Because I think once she got to the jury house, even though she got played by Paul, she got betrayed by Paul, I think she's still sold on him. I think she's like, this dude played a really good game. He's probably going to get my vote.
the problem with Alex here, though, that Paul's going to have in the end game, is that the entire game, Jason conceded to Alex's knowledge of what was going on, but Jason ended up being right the whole time in his doubts against Paul and hashtag friendship. But what's ironic here is that I think Alex feels guilty enough that she misled Jason along the way that she will, at the end of the game, concede to whatever he's saying about the direction they need to vote in. So what I'm getting at is if Jason stays very bitter, I think he and Alex will talk in the jury house and decide they're going to be bitter together. Like, I don't think Jason's going to allow Alex to be like, no, you shouldn't be bitter, like all that crap. I think Alex knows that she kind of just has to shut up and own that she was wrong most of the game. Like, she's not like Raven over there sitting there saying, well, no, we were the real final three. I just somehow ended up in the jury house. Like, she knows, like, Paul cut her, Paul betrayed her, and he basically lied to her.
Part of that is because Paul actually spilled it out for her. He's like, hey, I'm going to cut you. I have respect for you.
Yeah, I give no credit to Alex. You're right.
Which
you're
at the
right.
same time, like, if he would have done that to Raven, Raven would have been like, oh, I totally understand. I get it, though. Like, I'm the puppet master still, and all right, wink,
Yeah,
wink.
Raven would be in the jury house saying, not only am I a puppet master, but I'm also the biggest competitor in the house, which is why Paul cut me. Which I do think was funny that Paul was using that. Like, Paul legitimately was concerned about Raven. He was like, she keeps getting like second or third in like every competition. I was like,
It's like, yeah, that's scary. It's like,
yeah, but it's like
come
she's getting second or third because people like Kevin and Matt are getting out of competitions in the first like 5 minutes.
Yes.
So it's like, it's not really that impressive. I don't know. I just think that Paul has a hard time. I mean, obviously the difference is going to be whether Jason and Alex stay bitter or not. Like, if they vote with Paul, then Paul's probably going to win the game if he gets the final two. If they stay bitter, then I don't see Paul getting the votes because I think Mark and Elena are going to vote for Josh to win. Josh and Mark really vibed like his last few days in the house.
Right.
I don't understand like exactly how, but they just had a weird connection where they just kind of understood each other from on an emotional level. Maybe that's why. Maybe they're just both emotional. And
Well, wasn't that like where he's banging on the pots and pans and stuff, and then he kind of went and was like, "Hey, man, I'm sorry, I don't really want to do this. Like, this isn't really who I am. I'm just doing this because Paul's basically
Yeah,
asking
he
me to
did do that. That was a good move on his part too, I think.
Because he kind of already knew who was going out of the door, probably. So he's like, "Hey, just in case, if he's like, going to be a jury vote, maybe I can get his vote right here."
That was like one of his first I'm maturing moves, unless it was totally backhanded and self-serving, but it may have been. But I really like that apology, and I think Mark really bought it too.
Yeah, I mean, I took it for what it was. I thought, that he actually meant something by it, and that he really didn't want to do that stuff. Like nobody really wants to do that. Like if you're like essentially bullying people and getting them out that way, like stirring up a bunch of emotion and stuff like that. I just can't see Josh as being the kind of person who would actually do that.
Okay, so the key cog we're missing here is Kevin. We haven't really talked about Kevin, but his vote is huge in this finale, no matter who ends up there. I think that, initially I would think that Kevin would lean towards Paul. I mean, he was pretty loyal to Paul at the end of the game. The problem, though, is that Paul kept stringing Kevin along from literally week 1 saying, bro, just trust me. I know you don't know anything. Just trust me. Just trust me. Just trust me. Just trust me. And Kevin did that until the bitter end, and I kind of don't blame him because the dude was clueless. He needed someone to be able to trust through the game, and it got him very far. The problem is that every time you say trust me and then you cut him, it hurts him that much more.
Yeah, well, here's what he doesn't know. He cut him, but Josh did the tiebreaker vote and voted him out.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So,
Same with Christmas and Jason.
Yeah, I mean, he probably doesn't know that. He probably still trusts Paul and is probably going to vote for Paul.
Yeah. It'll be really interesting to see if Kevin is able to be swayed by a bitter group in the jury house. I wish we got a jury segment of Kevin because I think his reactions to everything going on between Matt and Raven and the other side would have been really funny just seeing him try to mediate all that. But I think it'll be basically either Kevin will go in and be like, I don't care what you guys say. I like Paul. Paul's coming to Thanksgiving, all this crap. Or he'll say, what do you guys think happened? Because I trusted Paul the whole time. Am I an idiot, basically? And they're going to be all like, yes, I can't believe you did that. Paul sucks. Don't vote for him. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see if he's shakeable.
Are there any live feed type windows into the jury house?
No.
That sucks because you can't really get a read on the votes.
It sucks whenever what's going on in the jury house is more interesting than what's going on in the house.
That's true.
Which has been like that for the last 2 seasons, actually. Okay, let's finish this up in just a couple of minutes here by talking about where we think these jury votes will go. Let's talk about Cody. Who does Cody vote for in a final between Josh and Paul?
I think Cody's a sociopath. I think he's going to hold on to a grudge, and it will be not Paul, whoever's the other vote.
Oh, I think he'll vote for Paul. I think he kind of will come around to saying he respects his game and votes for Paul.
Okay, so you guys are split there. I think he would vote for Paul.
My only thought there that would put me firmly on the other side is that I don't see Cody as ever conceding anything, and I'll be quick. And I think that if he were to give Paul his vote, he would say, you're a better man than me, and you outplayed me. And I don't think he'll ever say that.
I don't think he would say that to Josh.
True.
All right, so let's just assume that it's going to be Josh and Paul in the final 2. I know this kind of sucks. We're cutting Christmas this early, but I think Christmas is going to basically tell them to take each other. She's literally given up on the game. So
I agree.
I think there's very little chance that Christmas has in getting to the final 2, unless she wins it all, that means she'd have to win 2 competitions on one leg. I don't know. I just don't see it.
And then we can just delete this episode altogether.
Yeah.
Up against Josh, I will give my vote to Paul for Cody.
Okay. I know you said
I said
not.
Paul.
Oh, okay. So we got Paul. How about Mark? Josh, right? I mean, are we all in agreement
Josh.
there?
Sure, Josh.
Okay.
Same
And Elena and Mark are together, right?
Sure.
So it's kind of interesting. I thought that might become, because I think a showman's voted opposites last game. I can't remember who it was.
That does kind of seem.
Was it James and Natalie? No. A showman's voted opposites last game, but I don't know. We'll see. It seems like Mark and Elena are clicking very well in the jury house and are probably voting together.
Maybe it wasn't a showman since it was Victor and Polly or something like that.
Yeah.
That's a showman's.
Okay, how about Jason? This is huge.
Josh. I think Jason was so mad. I think I'll go with Josh.
I kind of agree with that. I think doesn't he still kind of hold Josh more in high regard anyway?
Yeah, I think Jason really liked Josh. Remember, Josh spent a lot of time with Jason in his last days, and even though he didn't tell him, "Hey, you're going home," he kind of alluded to the fact that he was being very somber and
He really wanted to tell him. He felt guilty.
Yeah, and Jason knows that now. I mean, Jason's talked about that in interviews and stuff.
And because of that, I think Alex votes with Jason and picks Josh as well.
Okay, let's leave Alex open because I think that's one up in the air. Where do you guys see Matt and Raven, right? I mean, with Paul?
Paul.
Paul,
Okay.
for sure, yeah.
I think. Sorry, go ahead.
So at this point, we got 2 votes left. Oh, wait, we got to put Christmas down here. You guys think Christmas goes with Paul?
Christmas is a P for sure.
Okay. All right, so at this point, we've got 2 votes left, and Paul is up 4-5. So basically, Josh would have to get Alex and Kevin's vote to win the game.
I think that he can get Alex. I don't think he can get Kevin.
You're saying that about Paul or Josh?
Josh. I think Alex will vote with Jason for Josh, and I think Kevin will
This is-
stick with
this
Paul.
will 100% come down to Alex's vote if this is the order that we're going in. Then
Yeah, because I think Kevin would be a firm Paul.
I think Kevin's
If we're-
Paul.
The
If we
thing with
do-
Kevin is I think he does care about fitting in and kind of being like part of the cool group. And I think that if he looks at this list, wow, we had Cody with Paul. See, that one could swing too. I don't know, guys.
That's true.
I guess it's 129. We better wrap this up. But I think we're pretty much up in the air. But it's going to come down to Cody, Alex, and Kevin. And, I mean, Jason's in there too. There's those 4 swing votes, but it could really go either way.
If
We'll
they go
see.
by my predictions, it'll be Paul by 1.
Okay. I think I've actually got Josh winning this. So
Wow. I'm the swing vote for today's episode. I'm gonna go with.
And we're out of time.
I'll go with Josh.
all right, well, that concludes our coverage for today's episode, and we appreciate anyone and everyone who's been listening along with us this summer. We'll probably do one last podcast later on, but thank you for listening, whoever you are, and until next time, happy Big Brother finale.
Let's go.
See ya.